But I just want to tell you, first of all, I don't even know how, did you tag me on your YouTube video? I don't even know how I found it.
Yeah, I think on Instagram story and on Twitter. Yes, I tagged you in it. Yes, so that was.
Yeah, first of all, it was the first. I might be lying, but I'm telling the truth because I don't remember. I think it was the first like YouTube review from Nigeria, and the book was really important to me because as much again as I am an American person,
Right.
I am a Nigerian. You know, I am a Nigerian in my soul. If I'm not, I mean, when I was in Nigeria, I was like, oh, I'm American, clearly, because I don't vibe.
Yeah.
But I really appreciated how kind you were about the book, but not because, you know, there was an unkindness that was possible, but you were so thoughtful about it, and you were so introspective, and you were so forthright about the things that you liked about it, but in a way that meant that you really studied it, as opposed to people kind of go on the surface and like, oh, I like, you know, and even with the questions you asked me today, they were in depth. Right. And I spent so much time worried that people wouldn't understand the book, especially because of the way it was written. Like the first person, second person, third person, tenses going in and out, all these weird memories and going back and saying, well, that's not true. Like all that stuff. I didn't think people were going to understand it. So it means so much to me that you were able to do that. And I also love the fact that the way that you broke it down, it's just, I really love what you're doing. I love the whole booktube thing. I love that you're doing, you know, the best you can to do this in an environment that's probably not as supportive as it could be. So yeah, that's why I was like, okay, like I want to talk to you, like let's do this. So anything that I can do, that doesn't require too much work, so I'm very lazy. Anything that I can do to support or to help, just let me know. Like you got it.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course.
Sorry, I'm going to be like smiling all through like a crazy person. So you have to permit me. Right. Okay. So I think what I wanted to do was I wanted to ask you some questions like from the book, and also if you don't mind like sharing, you know, your sort of mental health journey and your journey with like bipolar, which of course you've already gone into the book about and all. But, you know, like I told, I think I said it, I think when I commented also, it was so lovely to see that a Nigerian had put something out there, because, you know, a lot of us do struggle with that, and nobody really wants to be, oh, that's my mark, you know, as it were. Everybody just wants to, you know, from afar. So I really was excited when I read your work. It was so amazing. So thank you so much for that. Okay, so I did like 10 questions.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm going to name it something like 10 questions with, or however they do it. Exactly. Okay, so I'll start with like the ones that I think are, you know, somewhat okay, and then we'll start going deeper. Okay, so right, everybody knows everything about you. You're such a, I watched some of your spoken word, you're like so amazing and everything like that. Yeah, even the one where you were pregnant with your son, that was so cool. I was wondering whether you actually watched that back again. I don't know.
I don't. I watch any of them. I don't like, I think I try every time, because every once in a while they'll show up on my timeline, or especially the one that's about basically being Nigerian. My people will send it to my parents on WhatsApp, and then they'll be like, oh look, and then I'll try, and it's just I can't.
Right. Okay. So we have a fair idea of like, you know, what you're about. So just tell me something that nobody really knows about you. Maybe just a small habit or something that is like, so like something that people
oh my God.
Like no matter how random it is.
I am very random. What could it be? I don't know anything that people would be surprised by.
Right.
I'm a very I'm trying to see. I'm very immature, and that's not. I am. Oh, you know what is interesting?
What?
Especially as a Nigerian, the eldest daughter in a Nigerian family, I can't cook. I don't cook.
Funny enough, I'm going into that. That's one of my questions. But that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, like I can't. Like people are like, oh, make your jollof. I can't do that. Like I was vegan I eat pretty much plant-based now. So I
Right.
can make like things for myself. But if
Right.
you were to, like my sister, she makes a goosey soup at her place by her, like jollof, like all that stuff. She makes that for herself.
Right.
I
But
can't.
do you like to cook?
I don't like it.
Uh-huh.
I hate it.
We're in the same group.
I hate it.
I'll edit this part so that it will be like you were the only one that said it, so my mom won't hear. Like, even if I admitted.
Don't, like my sister loves it. And I'm like, I'm watching her. I was like, you just spent like 12 hours in the kitchen and it took us maybe 10 minutes to eat it. Like, I can't.
That's
Like,
me.
if I'm going to cook like that, you can't eat it. Just take a picture of it, preserve it, let it just live on the table forever, because I can't. I hate it. I don't get it.
I agree. Right. She forced me to say that. Welcome to the Nigeria.
I'll take it.
Exactly.
I'll be the bad influence.
Exactly. Okay, fine. So let's talk about your book. Yeah. Did you see? Okay, I think you watched the video where I was like freaking out about the cover and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm just so. How did this cover? Like, did you have anything to do with the cover? Like, did you?
Kind of. Like the book came out August 20th, 2019, 1920.
Right.
And you know, when you're in the process of writing it, once you've gotten like a handle on the bulk of what you're writing or what the story is or what the theme is, someone's going to come in at some point. So,
Okay.
they send you a cover. They sent me a cover, and they were like, okay, we're sending you the cover this week. And I was like, you know, you get like ready and like, okay, I'm going to be so excited. It's going to be so cool. This is wonderful. And they sent me this cover and I hated it. Like my face completely fell. And what I noticed was that, or what I think happened, I don't know if this is confirmed, but like, I think they were going for like a Chimamanda type thing.
Right.
Like there was something about the colors, something about the font that just felt like they were, I don't know, it was just something. And then on top of that, like my name was Bassey Ikpi, but my full name, and I'm going to say it terrible, is Nyono Ma Bassey Ikpi.
Right.
So they put that on the cover and I was like, I don't use that name at all. Like I'm Bassey Ikpi. Like where are you putting? And then I was like, y'all want me to be Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie so bad. And I hated it. So a really good friend of mine, Matthew, he is a graphic designer. And the thing is like, I'm not a visual artist. So I knew I didn't like it, but I didn't have the words or the language to say, can you fix this? Can you do that? So I went to my friend Matthew and I was like, hey, cause he's a graphic designer. I was like, can you like help me put together an email that like is very, you know, that tells them what it is I don't like and why and what they can change. And I sent him the cover and he was like, oh, this is terrible. And he had he had read a couple of the essays, like by chance, just a couple of weeks before. I had sent him some of the stuff that was in there. And he was like, okay, I'm doing something now, but give me a moment. And by the morning, I'll have, you know, an email for you that explains everything. He didn't send the email. Instead, he sent me, I think like 12 alternative covers. Wow. And he was like, this is the feel that should be from this book. And he had like all these different images. He had one that was like a mouth and like just all kinds of things. And one of them was the one that you saw. He was like, send them these as an example of what you're looking for. And so I sent it to them and they were like, they tried to like emulate it. But they also chose that one. It was like, okay, we're going to use this as the blueprint. And they kept sending stuff. And the more that they sent, I just kept going back to the one that ended up being the cover after I narrowed it down from the 6. And finally they're like, we can't top this. We can't do better than this. So I ended up getting my friend Matthew the job to design this cover. And the only thing that was different was like we went through like a color process where it was like, okay, because it was like yellow with green, and then it was like red, like it was all kinds of different colors for the cover. And then I don't know how we ended up with the exact color thing, but again, I'm not a visual person, and Matthew just like walked me through it. And I'm actually really shocked and surprised. I thought if nothing else, the cover would like get awards and
Yes.
like be nominated for things, and it wasn't. Look at the cover. If you look at the title, if you look at
if you
what the essays are about,
exactly.
it's perfect.
Yes,
it's perfect. Like everything about it is perfect. So I'm glad that they gave me the opportunity, because they, as a first time author who is untested, they usually don't give you the opportunity to have to be that involved in your design cover. I have a friend now whose book is coming out in September, and she hates her cover. There's nothing she can do about it. My former agent who sold the book, he was like, "Oh, you're a first time author. Just try to work with it. And I was like, I can't do that. This could quite possibly, and is possibly, the only book I'll ever write in my life. I have to make sure that it is exactly what it is I want. I can't look back and regret something as simple as the cover, you know?"
Right. That's so interesting, because obviously, like, readers, we don't really know what goes on behind the scene. Yeah, you mentioned something about like, okay, yeah, because you're like a first time author. So what actually made you transition from, well, not necessarily transition, I think it's you that would answer that. Did you sort of put a hold on poetry and then like come into nonfiction, or is that still going on, in your
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I'm definitely out of the poetry. I think that what attracted me to poetry when I was really young was the brevity. You have to pack so much meaning into these short lines.
Right.
And it helped me organize my feelings and organize my emotions and put them into a package that made sense to me.
Right.
So when I was writing poetry, I was always trying to figure something out. And the best way for me to do that was to get it as compact as I possibly can, to get it as brief as I possibly could. And I needed that for a really long time. I think that when I started performing, and then on top of that, when it became a job, I realized that just because I'm good at something doesn't mean I have to do it. And I think that I was kind of going in that mode. And once I stopped needing to process my life or the things happening in the world through poetry, I was like, I'm not writing it for fun. I'm definitely not reading it. I have friends who are poets who are always talking about poets and poetry and always reading and always writing. And that just never was my thing. If I would have discovered dance earlier, I probably would have found the same reason to dance as I did to write poetry. With that said, my book, the form of prose that I'm attracted to is very poetic. And I just don't have any desire to write poetry or poems anymore. Every once in a while, I'm like, oh, maybe I should. And then the funny thing is that I'm like, oh, well, I wrote that. Like, I've already written a poem, like with the things that are happening with Black Lives Matter. I was like, oh, do I want to write something else? But I wrote Diallo, and all I would need to do is change the names. The sentiment is still out there. I was thinking about Kanye this week, and there was a line that kept coming to my head. I was like, oh, maybe I'm about to write a poem for the first time in, 5 years or however long. And then I realized that it was a poem that I'd written for and about Britney Spears 13 years ago when she first had her breakdown. So I was like, I've written that already, so I'm also more interested in what other people have to say about things. I'm not, especially now, I'm not so married to the idea that I'm the only one who can say something, and I think that people get attached to you being the voice in a way that I think can be detrimental, in that you start to believe that you're the only one who can say it and do it, and that's how you set yourself up. And I just don't believe that. Like, even on Twitter, if I'm about to tweet something and then I see like 50 people have had the exact same thought, unless I can make it funny, I'm just like, there's no reason for me to. I don't need to contribute to this conversation. It's fine. It's out there. So
exactly what you're saying is so important, because what happens is that when people have certain voices, or the public gives certain people certain voices, they feel like they always have to say something, even if 100 people have said something, and then the society always wants to attack them, like, oh, why aren't you saying anything? And you're like,
Yes.
oh, well, 50 other people have said something that I wanted to say. It's like, no, everybody has to say. So I totally understand. Yeah.
And then what happens too with that is that if you say something before you've thought it all the way through, they'll attack you for that too.
Exactly.
So for me, it's like, you know, I think that I've constructed a public life, I guess, that gives me the space not to, because I've sort of just said enough times, I don't need to talk about this, and I won't. Let them be sincere about what they say, as opposed to being first.
Exactly.
And I think that once I won't say anyone else, once I was able to step back and just be quiet enough times, people stopped expecting it from me. Every once in a while, someone who has just discovered, you know, YouTube, and just discovered my poems, and just discovered that I'm the same Bassey that's on the blah, blah, blah. You know, they'll show up in my Twitter or in my DMs and be like, how come you're not talking about it? I was like, you literally found me because I was talking about this.
Exactly.
So, you know, that's how you know who I am, you know.
Exactly.
So I just don't have anything to prove right now, is what I think. I think I've gotten to that point in my life, as a healthy person, and then just as an adult, where I just don't think I have anything to prove to anyone.
Yeah. That is such a really, really good, it is so important, because people, once they become voices, like everybody tends to lose themselves in, you know, and everybody wants to prove, oh, like you said, you've not even thought it through, and then you're going to go and make a comment. Like, I understand how much pressure it might be for people who want to, but it's so good that you don't, you know, if I want to make the comment, I'll make the comment. And if after I thought it through, you know, and I'm saying what I'm happy saying, not because people are asking for that. That's like really, really important. Thanks for that. Okay, so let me ask, so which essay, right, was sort of like the most, should I use the word difficult? Let's say challenging, right? Because look, like your book, look, you were so, in fact, I don't even know, and I'm coming to, so I think we're like on question 5 now. So you're going to get the other questions. Which, I want to know which one was challenging for you to write, and which one, as much as you were explicit and raw and everything, you still had to like edit, because you're like, okay, what's this? Because somebody's going to call me, I'm going to get an email. So I need to know which ones, because there were some that I read that I don't want to answer it for you, because I felt like, man, this is so crazy. Like, oh my goodness, I need to, if I ever have the chance to ask her, I'm going to. So which one was the most challenging, and which one did you feel like you had to sort of edit?
I feel like they were all challenging, and I had to edit all of them.
Wow.
Because, but I know that's not the answer you want, but I think that the one that was the most challenging, as compared to, I guess, the one that might have been easiest to write, would be Yeka, the one that had my family in it too much. That's something that I didn't want. And one of the things that I tell people is that I did my best throughout the entire book, that whenever I mentioned anyone besides myself, I tried to edit towards kindness and edit with the knowledge that this is my experience and the other person may not agree, but that's not the point. And the point for me, because if you think about a lot of memoir, and especially the ones written by white people,
right,
they're very into like blowing their lives up and like telling all their business, and who cares if my mom or my dad or my sister reads it, who cares, you know. And I'm Nigerian. As much as I'm like atypically Nigerian, I'm still Nigerian. I still care very much for the people in my life, even the exes that I wrote about, because I'm also very aware of the fact that I'm flawed, and I'm you know, the whole book is about how flawed I am. So I made sure that I didn't tell anyone's story for them. I didn't go into detail. I would hint at, like, this thing might have happened. I don't know. It's not my story. And I also only told people's story as far as they intersected with mine. Right. So anything that happened before, anything that happened afterwards, I don't know. But this is where it met up with mine, and it's from my perspective. So I would say Yeka was probably the most challenging, and it went through so many different edits. There is a version that was in the, the proof, the one that you give early to reviewers,
right.
That isn't the finished copy. Yeah, there's a version in the proof that is, I wish never sees the light of day, because it's so different tonally than what happened or what actually ended up in there. Trying to write, edit, critique, anticipate people's reactions, all of that before I even wrote the first word. And so I had to clear my mind of all of that. And part of that was to write things as raw as possible, and then again go back and edit towards kindness.
Wow.
And then what did you say? What was the second half of that question?
Yeah, the one that you had to like edit the most, like, which you've already sort of answered.
Oh, yeah.
Separate one that you had to like edit a lot, exactly, towards kindness, or towards, so that it doesn't seem like as if you're coming off as the other, like family. You can't, like you said, you only say it as it affects your life and how it was towards kindness. But was there anyone that you had to, when you first wrote it, it was like, raw, and then after a while you're like, you know what, yeah, I have to sort of tone this down a little, which you kind of said.
Yeah, but also just beyond that, because I don't have the book with me.
Right.
I haven't read it. I read it for the audiobook, and then I think that was the last time I've ever read it. The first and last time I read it from cover to cover. So when people talk about it, I'm like, you read it more than I did. Yeah. So I'm like trying to think of essays, but there's an essay, and also the titles of essays change so much that I can't remember what it's called in the book. But there's Tahuti. It's called Tahuti.
Right.
That's the one that I really Tahuti and Like a War. Those are the two that I really, because when you're writing about relationships like that, it hits you pretty hard, and your memory of it is pretty and I didn't want to slant it. So, because when you think about it, especially with Tahuti, you're like, there's a reason why you were with this person. It's not because you were stupid. You weren't hypnotized. It wasn't jazz. You know what I mean? There's a reason, and you need to put the good parts in it as much as possible.
Right.
And I had to fight with my editor, because she was like, oh, you're making excuses. Even in the first time you see, he's telling the truth, but he's lying. The first time you hear that phrase is that she was like, he doesn't deserve to be the first person that shows the title. And I was like, but that's not realistic, because the title came from that conversation, and it's the way that I frame so much of how I process information, and so much of how I think that people are talking to me, and me trying to decipher what people mean versus what they want to mean, and what I mean versus what people hear, all this different stuff. It's like, so I have to fight. It's like, this has to stay in, because he's not a terrible person. He's not a sociopath. He's just someone who was flawed, and I was flawed too. And we met up in a very flawed space, and he's gone on to do amazing, great, fantastic things. And I've gone on to doing, good things too. So it's not like this villain that I've created and then he just disappeared. I have to be very, very aware of the fact that these are people who are alive and living, and they need to know that they weren't just fodder for a future memoir.
Right, which sort of leads to my next question. Thank you for that. So when the book was finished, or let's just say when the maybe advanced readers copies came out and everything like that, so did you get any emails or texts or phone calls or backlash or anything like that?
Well, here's the thing. My parents, my family has not read it. I asked them not to, and they were like, okay. So they didn't.
Wait,
others,
so now they haven't?
Oh no, they haven't.
Wow, that's so good.
They haven't. Cool. They haven't.
Wow, that is.
Yeah. My family is really, really great. I think one of my brothers felt like he thought he was obligated to read it, and then I think after one of my book tours here in DC, book tour stops in DC, he was like, "Yeah, I'm struggling." I was like, dude, you don't have to read it. He's like, oh my God, thank God. So he didn't. My parents were are we bad parents if we don't read it? And I was like, no, you're perfect parents. You're fantastic. You're the best parents in the world for not reading it. So they didn't read it. My sister didn't read it. But I wanted that because especially with my siblings. Like, I'm so much older than they are. Like, I'm 6, 8, and 10 years older than all of them.
Right.
And they had a different experience. They had a different set of parents. My parents were really young. You know, it was different, especially the youngest. Like, he grew up in this house. You know what I mean? I didn't. You know, so it's a different experience. And also, one of the things that I was very concerned about, especially with my friends and the people that are still in my life to this day, they didn't know the intensity of things. They didn't know the extent of things. They didn't know that I was going through what I was going through while they were literally sitting next to me, or I was just about to go see them. Like, there's stories in there where the before is I just left somebody, or the after is I was on my way to somebody else. So a lot of what there's a story, I call them stories, but there's a essay. There's stories. They have to brand them essays for publicity reasons. But what is it called? It's the one with Derek in it. The Calm Before, I think.
Right. Yeah.
The Calm Before. So Derek and I are still friends. We talk all the time. And he remembers that story, but he didn't know what was going on the other side of the phone. He didn't know all of that stuff was going on the other side of the phone. So I remember he got an advance copy, of course, and I remember him calling me around this time last year, and he was like, "Go to bed." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, I keep telling Book Bassey to go to sleep, and I didn't know all of this was happening then, so I'm telling you, present day Bassey, go to sleep. Just go, like, just rest, put whatever you're doing down and go do it. So there was a lot of that. And I didn't want people to feel as though they could have done more or they didn't do enough. I was very, very careful about that. So I did prep people who were to read, you know, people in my life who were reading the book. I was like, yeah, you didn't know, but you didn't know because I didn't tell you, because I made it a point to hide it. And it was easier for you to think that I was just lazy and irresponsible and flaky and all these different things, as opposed to telling you what I was really struggling with. And so I wanted to assuage any like retroactive guilt that anyone might have. So that's what I prepared people for. I didn't get any phone calls from anyone in the books. I don't know if they read them. I'm a coward because I was still friendly with what is his name in the book was Michael. That's not his name. That's another story. They remind me to tell you about the namings and trying to change names.
Yeah, I saw the beginning of the book.
Yeah, so he and I were like friendly. I hadn't seen him in like a couple of years. I think I saw him in 2016 the day I saw Hamilton on Broadway. That's the last time I saw him. But we were like, you know, hey, how you doing? Like, we were doing that. And then, like, my birthday is August 3rd, and the book came out August 20th. And August 10th, he sends me a message like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Happy belated birthday." And I just deleted it. I was like, I don't want to, because if I respond, I don't know whether I feel like if they did read it, they would have reached out. So I think they didn't read it. But then one of them I blocked on my phone, and I forgot that I did that for like 2 years. So I don't even know. I don't know. We have enough. And the thing is, we all have enough mutual friends so that somebody would have said, would have told me, or if it's such a bad reaction, they wouldn't have told me. So either way, I'm fine.
Exactly. Right.
Don't contact me.
Right.
Please don't.
Please so don't. Interesting. Do you know, I'm so surprised by the fact that you said that you told your parents not to read, and they didn't want to read because you said they shouldn't read. That is so amazing. Like,
yeah.
You told me, don't read this. I'm going there. I'm like, oh, what don't you want me to say? I'm going to go and read it. But that's
the thing is, like, it's so weird because, like, I have a very Nigerian family. Like, my dad has been here for 40 plus years. Even before I was born, he was here. But you would think he just showed up from the village. Like, he's really just that guy. So, but at the same time, they're also very atypical of Nigerians because there's so much freedom and so much space, especially my dad has given us, where I didn't feel, I felt comfortable saying don't read it. So they're like, oh, if she's saying not to read it, it must be something we don't need to know. And they just let that go.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so coming down to like, even siblings and Nigerian and African families, like there's something I read, right? In young girls, they do get weary. And when you said I couldn't be responsible for creating new worries, I was the oldest. It was my responsibility to be easy. So I want to understand, because I'm not a first child. I'm the second and the last. So I do know how it is. Like we sort of have an easier ride because there's not much, pressure. And I know how it is in Nigerian families and sort of African families generally. But let's talk about Nigerian families since we're both Nigerians, right? So how do you think that may have sort of made you feel pressured generally? And like, what does it mean when someone's like the first child, and what those sort of obligations or responsibilities that are not said but are clearly like, oh, you're the first, so you should, so how did that basically like affect your journey?
To be a kid that was always very observant, there was so much that I saw that wasn't directly told to me. But again, my parents were both in school and university when I was a kid, and they were both working. So I knew that they were tired and they were busy and whatever. So as that, I kind of internalized, okay, well, you can't give them more problems. They can't leave work to come and see about you, and not that they didn't or they wouldn't. It just wouldn't be. You just know it'd be better if something didn't happen. No one has to tell you. But then also a lot of it too, I have to think about whether I put the pressure on myself, just knowing the kind of pressure I put on myself anyway. Was this an added thing that I just took upon myself to do? But at the same time, you do hear, oh, but you're the first. They're following you. You're the first. You have to take care of them. You have to make sure that they're okay, like stuff like that. And it's stuff that any quote unquote normal child would just be like, I have to take care of my kid. I have to do this thing, whatever. But for me, because of the way that I was already processing my life and processing the world, it just became like this thing I had to do. And any hint towards failing at that would be a complete, the world would blow up, in that essay. But if I wasn't paying attention, if I chose my own comfort over other people's, then just the world would catch on fire. That's what it felt like. No one told me that. I knew, that it wasn't true, more or less, but it didn't make it feel any less true. So I think my entire life, I always felt like I had to be good to make up for how wrong I felt internally.
Right.
I don't know if that answers your question, but the way that I think about it is that, because I know that it wasn't, except for when it came to like school and stuff. Right. I don't remember ever hearing, anything directly about, you have to do this, you have to do that. But it was like little things like, oh, well, you're older, so you need to do that. You need to, make sure that they're okay. You need to do, like stuff like that. But and never to the extent that I've seen other Nigerian elders. Like my best friend is the eldest daughter of Nigerian parents, and she's a whole different, like she's so much more mature than I am. She's got her life together, like she's the mom, and I'm just kind of like, well, am I still 12? So yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so then I read What It Feels Like. That's where which by the way you did beautifully. Like, oh my goodness. See, I feel like it's one thing for you to be able to feel something, and it's one thing for you to be able to put it in writing, and it's another thing for somebody who is reading to be able to feel exactly what you're feeling just from reading your writing. Like, it's just so, that's why I always say writers are superheroes in my head, because, well, good writers, but I just feel like you did so I feel like you did so beautifully.
Thank you.
on this what it feels like, right? And how you ended, imagine you don't fit anywhere, not even in your head, right? So I wanted to ask, like, did publishing this book and the essays feel like some sort of, how do I say it? Let me use the word like catharsis. Like, did it kind of affect your journey with like bipolar 2 and anxiety? Is that something that has still sort of remained the same, or was there any significant change from when you published till now? Like, would you say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I first started writing the book in 2016, I talk about this on Twitter all the time. I was in one of, if not the worst depressive episodes of my life. And it was a mixed episode, which I usually feel, which is when you're up and down at the same time. It's just like, you're just kind of hanging in the middle. It's a terrible feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going through that, and I didn't think that I was going to make it. Like, I really finished the book as like, okay, this is the last thing I'm going to do. So I wanted to write a book. I want people to know what it feels like, to experience and go through all this. So, you know, how hard I worked, and you know that I tried. I tried, like I've tried for years and years and years. But what I experienced when I was in the thick of writing and then after, was that I was able for the first time to line up everything that happened. And when you look at your life and you look at it in segments and fragments, you're like, God, I fucked up. God, man, I'm the worst. Like, I didn't finish school. I didn't, like, you have all the worst things. But for me, reading or writing the book and being able to see everything lined up, what I felt was, wow, you've been through it and you have come out of it. Every single time you've come out of it. And there are things in here that one person could experience, but you've experienced so much of it and you're still here. And that means something. So since then, and I say this all the time, like, I am currently the healthiest I've ever been in my entire life. My mental health is paramount. Like, nothing jeopardizes it. I won't take a job. I won't, like, even with I was joking, but I was serious about writing a second book. The fact that when I think about that, I get so stressed out and anxious. It's like, it's not worth it to me. When it's not that, then I'll do it. So I always choose my mental health over anything and anybody else. This book changed my life in multiple ways, not just as a writer or, you know, not just like professionally, but personally, it has definitely empowered me and strengthened me. It's given me the opportunity to, again, look at my life from the outside in. Because the book is very internal. And so I'm also looking at it as someone who is watching this person, and that person isn't necessarily me, and watching and feeling and seeing her for the first time. And it just changed my life for the better, in that my health, and the way that I see my past. Because again, you can list all your failures and forget to list your triumphs, and being able to see that like that, it changed everything for me. It changed everything for me. I have my ups and downs about the whole writing process and what I want to do with it, but I'm grateful for the fact that it has shown me my own life in a way that makes me proud of my life and makes me feel that I am both stronger and more fragile than I expected, than I knew of myself. And I don't mean fragile in a way, and I think I say it in the book, like, I'm someone I know who is fragile in that I'm capable of breaking, and that's nothing new to other people, right? So I see myself as something worth protecting. That's basically what I was getting at. So because of this book, I'm very, very much about protecting myself and protecting other people from me. That's another thing too, because I was terrible. Like, at my worst, I wasn't nice. I wasn't, kind. I was selfish. I was not a great person. Right. So I do so much work now that is guided again by kindness and guided by empathy towards others. So I do not and this always goes back to Twitter, I don't join in attacking people
Mm.
because that doesn't make me feel good about my place in the world. So I'm very, very careful about how I treat myself and how I treat others. And I do think it's a direct result of this book
Right.
and having written it and read it and experienced it.
Right. Okay. Thank you for
I
sharing.
give really long answers.
They're so honestly okay, and I'm not just saying this because you're talking like you, and you actually answer my questions really good. So please, by all means, I'm happy here. Okay, so
Okay.
I'm going to come to. Okay, we have 3 questions to go. So I think the third to the last one is okay, and I saw this one where you said you live with your soccer superstar son, and I wanted to ask how motherhood, like becoming a mom, and just like how that has sort of changed your journey, yes, like dealing with bipolar, like and anxiety, and getting to that healthy space where of course there's still the ups and downs, and what advice you may have for Nigerian moms who may or may not be. I'm sorry, this question might be a little bit long, but I think you get the substance. So on motherhood and your journey, but in the book, I know that there were times when you could not necessarily remember certain things, as it were, or you may have, but you were lying, but telling the truth as well. But you remembered how you felt, and until sort of the doctor put a name to it and said, oh, this is what it is, you knew how you felt at different times, and so of course then I want to assume that then you didn't have your son then, but let's talk about like in motherhood, like what about mothers who don't really know that this is what it is, but they experience what it feels like. So how has that affected your journey, and do you have any advice now for mothers who may feel it, but no, they don't know that that's what's called, especially in Nigeria, obviously, because God forbid anybody should even feel that or even speak about it. And, yeah, exactly. That's just it. So how has that affected you, and then your advice for mothers?
Yeah. It's difficult for me to start conversations about motherhood because the start of my journey was one that was very chaotic and for lack of a better term, no pun intended, born out of mania. So it's not something that I actively chose. I'll say that. Just to be, again, I'm also very protective of him, and his story, but because I don't ever want him to like Google my mom and whatever. But that's the truth of the matter. So it's not something that I chose. It wasn't something that it wasn't a healthy choice. I'll say that it wasn't a healthy choice. But one of the things that I did was that I knew one of the blessings and curses of the way that my brain works is that I'm very self-aware. I may not know what the words are, or I may not know what the term is, but again, I feel something. I know something isn't okay, and so very early, I put parameters up that protect me. I don't know what I'm being protected from, but there's a story in the book, the one about ecstasy. There was one, but I was very careful about not drinking too much or not being around people who had drugs, because I didn't know whether or not I was capable of having an addiction in that way. And once I started realizing that I might, I immediately stopped and went and pivoted towards something else. So with that, I was like, I can't be in Brooklyn by myself with this human, because I don't know what happens to me. And I don't know what would happen to him. So we came home, we've been here for 13 years. This is not the plan I had. I lived in Brooklyn and I liked it there, and I had a whole set of, I had a whole life, but that life didn't make sense with the kid. And I also knew that when I started to feel the way I always feel, he needs people who can show him that the way that I'm feeling isn't a direct response to him. So in this house, he has my dad, who they're like this. My brothers live 5 5 minutes away, 5-10 minutes away. So they're my sister. He and my sister are like this too. They talk all the time. When she comes home, that's their buddy. They cook together. Like, they do all that stuff. So I made sure I surrounded him with all of the things and the people that I couldn't provide by myself. Because I saw very early on how sensitive he was to me. And I needed him to have an experience that was better than what I'd been told people with mothers like me had.
Right.
You know, so many of them felt like they felt responsible, like they didn't do A and C, so that's A and B. That's why their mother is sick. That's why, you know, they felt like they were always catching the rage. I mean, I don't really rage, but I am very irritable. And so if a little kid is doing something, I'm like snapping. Like I can't do that. So it's better I kind of just leave the room. Even not even leave the room. I left the country. I went to Nigeria for off and on for 3 years in the middle of I should not have been there, but I was. And as much as it's not his favorite, and he brings it up, he's joking, but he's like, and then you abandoned me. He had my sister, my brothers, and I know it's not the same, but I also know I'm confident in that it was better for him that I wasn't around the way that I was those 3 years specifically. And then when I came back was when I had like I came back in 2015 and that's when I was like really, and then by 2016, I was just completely, I was not okay. So I feel like I made the decision in that way. As far as, it's weird because if you're asking me as an American, I have a different response than I do as a Nigerian, especially because, like I said, I spent 3 years off and on in Nigeria. And I saw the ways in which motherhood is both deified and villainized. So it makes it exceptionally hard. It makes it exceptionally difficult for mothers to know where to turn. Because on the one hand, you do have like easy access to generations of grandparents and great grandparents and aunties and uncles that are always around to help you, and they do and they should, but they also help with like an attitude of judgment or an attitude of like condescension and belittling. And it's not true all the time, but I do know why it's difficult for people, but specifically mothers in Nigeria, to ask for help. It's because I have friends who are mothers who are in Lagos currently who are struggling with different things, and I don't know what to tell them because I know how different the society is. You know, the only thing that I can do, and it sounds like weird advice, but it's like the internet, except like finding groups of people on the internet that are not necessarily in Nigeria, and maybe a couple of, so that you can talk to each other about it and reach out to each other and process this information without judgment. A lot of these Facebook groups have popped off like that, where they're like Nigerian women who are really very honest about it. And I mean, just in the 5 years since I've been in Nigeria, I've seen discourse change because people have greater access to different people. Like the whole feminist movement in Nigeria, I never thought I'd see the day, but it's huge now because they realize that the conversation is bigger than just Nigeria. And so, I mean, that's basically, it's not a great answer, but again, since I spent time there, it's like, there's not, the culture is changing, but it's changing slowly. And when the culture changes slowly, the only thing you can do is find ways to reach beyond the culture. And that's not a great answer, but that's the answer.
Right. Thank you for that. That's
but also, sorry, before I another thing, going back to motherhood, one of the things for me, the pluses for me, is that I'm able to catch things much sooner than they were caught for me. And I think that is if there's any like upside to that for me here. And I'm doing so in a way that allows room for me to be fallible, in that like he sees somebody, like this is someone you get to talk to. I talk to somebody once a week. You get to, once a month now, because I'm doing so well. But you talk to somebody once a week because it's important for you to have that space. And I want all the things that I'm seeing, the anxiety and that something that could lead to something greater, we're going to catch it before it gets there. And I think that's really important, because I don't think that the answer is like there are kids that are troubled and kids that are not troubled. There are kids that get help. And there are kids who are listened to, and there are kids who are given the opportunity. And this doesn't happen a lot in Nigeria either. Kids who are given the opportunity to be kids, and not like mini versions of their parents or mini adults. And I think that's something that I was able to uniquely see and provide because of what I'd experienced.
Right. That's so cool. But did you at any point feel like, did you feel like you had put any pressure on yourself to now sort of, how do I say, there's no other way to put this phrase, like maybe to be perfect, not perfect, but just to sort of present a more, how do I say this now, like a more organized front, like a more like, okay, yeah, I'm your mom and I can take care of you and I'm good, like I'm good. And I mean, I know that I sort of assume that he understands, at least to an extent, you know, what all of this is about and your own journey and stuff like that. So did you have to like explain it, you know, to him? And was it something that you sort of now went, you know what, yeah, I'm a human being and I have this? Or did you still feel that need to be like, you know, every mom is protective of their kids. So you want to also, as much as even with my sister, she just became a mom and sometimes she's freaking out. She's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm the worst. And, you know, I have to like calm her down. So did you feel some sort of added pressure? Like, okay, I have to do this. Or you were just like, okay, you know what? Yeah, this is the sum of it all. And this is me. And this is what's up. And I'm just going to, in time, I would explain things to him and he'll get to know all of me, kind of. Yeah. I don't know if you get my question.
I do. I think that, again, because of who I've always been, I never had any delusions of the kind of person that I was.
Right.
You know, it's not like I was working for a Fortune 500 company and then I had a breakdown. Like I never even got to that point.
Right.
So I always kind of felt like I was fucking up, like always. Right. So I always just did the best that I could in everything that I chose to do. So even this was like, I'm doing the best that I can.
Right.
What I did struggle with was, and even is like, just very recently, have I been able to like, oh God, he needs soccer shoes, and go get soccer shoes. Like he needs this, I'll pay for it. Like before I was asking my parents, or my sister would just take care of it, or my brothers would just take care of it. Because again, we're all people. I'm not a single parent, right? This whole family is raising this kid. Like everyone makes sure that his needs are met. Everyone is doing that. So I never felt like I had anything to prove. I do still, you know, have moments when I'm, you know, I want to argue with my mom, like he's not starving to death. I swear. Like I've wanted him to be very self-sufficient because I didn't know what I was going through. So if he's able to like, you know, my sister is teaching him how to cook, but like if he's able to like, if I can't get out of bed, is he able to put a pizza in the oven? Is he able to make a sandwich for himself? Is he able to handle that? So I prepared him for things like that. Yeah. And that's my version of being successful. Right. So I had to change what that meant. There was something I was going to say, but I forgot. I lost my train of thought. But yeah, I had to just kind of come up with different ways to be a successful person, period. And then that translates into becoming or coming up with different ways to be a successful parent. But I think that not even parents, I don't like deifying like, oh, parents and motherhood is the greatest thing. I think that all people, when it comes to relating to other people, we're very self-conscious about the impact that we're having. Am I a good worker? Am I a good church goer or whatever? Like we put so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect in different ways. I don't separate that from, I just don't think that deifying motherhood, and I don't believe in deifying or villainizing anything. Or vilifying anything. So the same kind of work I put into being a good person is the same kind of work I put into being a good parent.
Right.
And that means different things to different people. What
Exactly.
that means to me is different than what it means to you or your sister, or what it means to my sister.
Yeah.
And that's just the way the world is. And I don't like it when people try to compare and contrast, because I think that does so much damage.
Yeah,
You
or
know?
even force down their perspectives on other
Yes.
people to say, and then say, oh, you're a failure as this, because it doesn't measure up to their own personal standards. So
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the good things about my relationship with my son is that he gets me and I get him.
right.
Like he'll last night I was because my sister decorated my office.
Right.
And it used to be the storage room where people just throw things, and my mom would use it when she didn't want to use the dryer. She used it to dry things. So I bought a dry rack, and I was trying to put it together and, screwing things, and I just got frustrated. And then he just comes in, he's like, stop, just put it away. Just don't, just stop. And he does stuff like that because he sees that. And then he also knows that and this is a tool that his therapist gave him, where he just goes,
right.
And he just resets everything. And that's a tool that I wouldn't know to give him had I not known enough to send him to somebody who would give him that tool. Does that make sense?
Yes. That
makes
sense. That makes
so I think that's a plus.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And then coming to therapy. So this is the second to the last one. Coming to therapy and just generally mental health awareness, and as it relates to anxiety or even different forms of mental health, issues, right? What would you say? Because obviously, here it's the culture is really different, how we talk about it. And while we're trying to work on it, it's slow, because I know that I even volunteer for an NGO that does a lot of mental health awareness, right? And I remember that before we had the lockdown, we had specifically spoken about, bipolar II and I think anxiety, because we had this conversation cafes every month where we pick a mental health issue or an illness or a topic, anything, just so that we shed more light on it. And then people are encouraged to say their stories if they had any. And people were sharing their personal experiences. Some are in therapy, some are not, because, their families are like, no, all you need is Jesus. And, and it was interesting to see that there were still people there as we were having the conversations who were like, yeah, you know what, there's also a certain amount of prayer, and then that religion thing always comes into play, and people are like, no, if you pray hard enough or you read scripture or you go to the mosque enough. And that has really, really slowed down, a lot, because obviously there are not so many conversations like that. So I do know that, of course, you stay in America, but what would you say to that in terms of what we can do better, as Nigerians? And as much as anybody who is watching this who feels it might not be anxiety, it might not be, they may not even be able to put a how do I call it, a word to it, right, of what it may be, so what do you think that we can do better, especially as you know how much religion plays a huge role in the average Nigerian, oh my goodness, it's really crazy. And I've had personal experiences, I don't even know where to start from. So what do you think that we can do better, even if it's the average Nigerian who may be going through something and not even know what it's called? What do you think that we can do? And then also paying sort of, how do I say it, bearing in mind that even therapy in Nigeria is, other than the fact that there's so much stigma attached to it, sometimes it's really expensive if it's not free, so people are trying to go online, they don't even know who they're talking to, there's just so much, people are looking for answers, people are looking for things, there's just so much. So what do you think that, I'm not even trying to say, what do you think a group of Nigerians can do? The average person who may be watching this video, who feels like they can connect with you because you've been so open in sharing your story, and the fact that you're Nigerian, and the fact that, they just feel like, oh my goodness, this person could share, this is exactly how I feel. What do you think that they can do?
Again, it's hard to say because I consider myself an American, and I have spent a lot of time in Nigeria. I did a mental health conference in Lagos, and it was great in that it was filled with mental health practitioners and people sharing stories, but it also, again, that religious thing is going to kill Nigeria. Like, it's just out of hand. It is out of hand. I remember after that incident, I gave my email out after that convention. I gave my email out so people could, just talk if they needed to talk. And I got this email, I'll never forget it, from this woman, Dr. Reverend somebody.
Wow.
And what she said was that she saw, and she's like, I look so nice, fine girl, this, I talk well, all this. And I was like, okay, nice. And then she's like, what I've discovered is that all mental illnesses can be traced directly to immoral behavior.
Oh,
so
I thought you were about to say
no, well, even the devil I can handle. Like, that one I've heard. This one was new to me.
Wow.
So it was like, anxiety is related to promiscuity. This is this. So in order for you to cure this part, you need to do this. Call me if you need more information. So and then that's one incident. Again, like I said, I wasn't okay when I was in Nigeria. I was having these mood surges up and down, and at one point I was like, I need to see somebody. And I went and I found one of the doctors. I was keeping in touch with one of the doctors that were at that conference. And I made an appointment with him. I was like, okay, just whatever. So within 10 minutes of this session, he says to me, again, I'm not even saying like, oh, I'm so fine, but like the fine girl thing, if you had a husband and children, you would have something else to focus on. This is a doctor. And I was like, from that point, I just told everyone, do not see a therapist in Nigeria. Don't do it. Don't do it. Even the few ones that I found that are fantastic and are amazing, they have since left Nigeria because they cannot do their job properly. And that's heartbreaking because people need it. Nigeria is not immune to mental health issues. And if anything, it makes people
everybody's crazy.
I can tell you,
like, we need someone. Yeah.
The reason why I left is because I was in Nigeria. It was all kinds of fuel subsidies. Everything was happening. I had to go to Nairobi for an event that I was doing. So I went to Nairobi. Something happened and I ended up staying. I was supposed to be there for 10 days. I ended up staying for like 3 weeks. And when I was in Nairobi, I was like, why is it quiet? No generators. Why? They would be like, oh, sorry, please excuse the traffic. It's so bad. I was like, I was in traffic for like half an hour. I've been in Lagos traffic for 8 hours. Like, what are you talking about? I just realized that I had gotten used to things that human beings should not get used to. You should not get used to like a constant humming and buzz in your ears because of a generator. You shouldn't get used to like having to structure your day because in case they took light, then your entire evening, like there's so much stuff that you should not get used to, but I was finding myself getting accustomed to. So there's so much there that people in Nigeria, Lagos, wherever, they need people to help them. And the fact that these people are leaving because they can't do their jobs properly, this is not helping you at all. Let me think of a way to answer this question. But it just
no, because that's
just so
reality. Yeah, I get you. Like,
yeah, it's so sad to me because I mean, they're no, I was gonna name a doctor and he left for London. He told me last year. Again, the only thing that I can say is as long as they don't shut down the internet,
right.
I wish one of the things that I want to do with the Seaway Project, once I become established enough to hire someone to do it, because it's not my ministry, is to be able to provide, especially now with the Corona thing, via FaceTime, they're doing whatever. So that means you can be anywhere. Right. You can be anywhere and see a therapist. So I think that there needs to be some kind of international teletherapy thing that's happening. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think that that's something that I need to look into, because now with I don't think BetterHelp or Talkspace, which are, I don't think they're in Nigeria and they need to be, or in Africa and they need to be. Yeah, it's sad because people ask me this question all the time, and I should at this point be able to come up with a better answer. I just don't have one because so much is working against the people in Nigeria, even when it comes to like getting medication, or you don't know whether you're getting fake medication, if it's real. Like just, I remember when I came back, I kept joking with my friend. I was like, I just need to make enough money so that everybody I love and care about, I can just move them out of Nigeria, because it's so tragic, and it sounds terrible, but I just really, I don't know. So much is working against that religion, that part. I've seen it get better. Let me not be negative. Let me backtrack. Okay. I've definitely seen it get better. I've seen people get more open to it. I know that for me, when I was there, I made it a point to always look a certain way. Like I would go on Ebony Life, or I'd go on, what's that one? It's the Nigerian station, NTA. I'd go on NTA, or I'd go on wherever, and I would make sure that my hair was always done and I was fully made up, and I would be telling them my story, but they're looking at someone that they can't reject, right? So, and if I said to someone standing there, with my contacts and not my glasses, and I'm saying the only difference between me and the madman on the street is that their family didn't support them. Their community didn't support them. They didn't have access to the doctors and the medication that I did. That's the only difference. So I think that the more people that are able to talk about it the way that you would talk about, I was going to say the way you would talk about anything, but Nigerians hide when they have malaria too. So, I don't know.
And I said that one time, I was like, I really hope we get to the point where, because people can, even malaria, like everybody, it's just malaria. Like if you can talk about your physical health and be like, I just hope that I'm just really, and that's why I try to attach to things that are speaking up about it, to make it as what everybody is using the word now, normalize, talking about your mental health. If you're not feeling too well for a while, and it's not because you had malaria or because you had a headache or whatever, and it's genuinely because your mental health was down or it was all over the place. The same way you say, man, I was physically ill. What's wrong saying, I was mentally ill? Like, and that's why, I guess as the conversations continue to happen, but I do agree with you that religion is a thing. It's really, really, really a thing, because, man, like we can be on that for forever. But I would just take like what you said so far, at least even with people speaking about it and stuff like that. I really do hope that there's some sort of platform that Nigerians can, like you said, can hop onto that, even if it's something international. They can do Zoom, or they can, because a lot of us are, my auntie always says that it's not by, you're calling the madman on the street mad because you can see visibly. Meanwhile, all of us in our car driving in traffic and insulting each other. We're all crazy upstairs. We need to talk.
Oh my God.
Like it's not normal, like what you're saying. It's not normal with how we're living, but we can point at somebody and be like, haha, look at that crazy man. It's like, okay, but you're the one.
Let me tell you something that happened. The first time that I was back in Nigeria was like 2013, 2012. And before then I hadn't been back since I was like 12 years old. Right. And I remember I was there for an event. I was there for, I think, about 10 days. And I remember the people who picked me up, they picked me up from the airport, and then they had to make a stop to go get food or whatever. And I sat in the car, and I'm sitting in the car, and I think it was at, what's that grocery store?
Not ShopRite?
ShopRite. It was ShopRite. So you know how everything has like the walls, and then you have to go drive in? Right. So I'm sitting, in the backseat just like this, just like looking, and I see two cars like trying to pull in at the same time, and they pull in, and then they get side by side, and then they nobody hit anybody. Nobody hit anybody. And I was like, excuse me, both of your cars are fine. Nobody hit anything. You're close, but nobody hit anything. And I was sitting there like, clearly something happened at your house. Something happened at your job. You were frustrated in traffic, and you were just waiting to take it out on somebody. And you both met the right people on the right day. It was the wildest thing I'd ever seen. And that to me was like, every time I saw that, when you see people, you're in traffic And all you need to do is let this person pass. And you refuse to let them pass.
Exactly.
So now you're like this. Now you're just,
and
no one behind you can
like
move. No one in front of you can move.
For 10 minutes.
Yes.
At each other.
Yes.
Nobody's
That's
moving.
not healthy. That's not normal. That's not normal behavior. There's something wrong with that. And the fact that it has become normalized to be abnormal in Nigeria is something that will hold us back for the longest time. But I do believe things are changing, because I do believe I've seen, especially the younger people, I've always attested that the problem with Nigeria is that they let old people run things too often. And it is the people who are 30 and under that should be leading the charge. And I'm seeing a difference. I'm seeing them being more vocal. Again, I think it's because of the internet, being more vocal. These are your people who are, 5 years ago, I don't think I knew as many openly gay people as I do, or openly queer people as I do now, because it's been normalized in that way. So it's like, if you're normalizing all these different things, mental health should be coming along with you. Because there was a girl that emailed me from, I don't know if she was in Calabar or she was in Lagos, but she said that I think she was in Calabar. She said, oh, I want to go, see a doctor, but my parents won't be happy. And I remember telling her, I was like, if you had broken your leg and you were lying in the middle of your compound with a broken leg, and someone was like, oh, you don't need to go to the doctor, it's fine. You would think that there was something wrong with them. So it's the same principle. If you have the access, and I'd given her the name of Dr. Bassey in Calabar, who was an amazing, therapist. I'd given her his number, and I'd alerted him that she was out there. I was like, you have the access. You don't need to ask permission. And she was like in her 20s. She was like, she was a little too old to be asking for her parents' permission, but whatever. I don't judge. But I was like, if your mother or if your father says, leave the broken leg, and you listen to them, you wouldn't. You were like, oh, okay, I need to do something about this leg for myself. Do something about your brain for yourself. They don't need to know. You don't need to consult them. You don't need to confide in them. I think a lot of people feel like they need to confide in people. And I was like, yeah, you do, because you need to get it off your chest. You need the help. But when it comes to Nigeria, don't. Keep it in your chest. Don't get it off there. Keep it in your chest and just go and do the work necessary to get help. There are a couple of doctors. I think at the time when I was in Nigeria, someone told me that they were only like 9 or 10 registered psychiatrists in the entire country. I don't know if that's changed. I hope it's changed. But my answer always goes back to looking outside of the boundaries and borders of Nigeria, because that place will kill you and not care.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for all your answers. So the last one I wanted to ask is so what are you currently working on? It doesn't have to be like a book or whatever, even if we're silently, even if you joked about it, that you might not. But what are you currently working on? Do you have some project or whatever it is that we can follow? Something like that. And it's fine if you don't, but
yeah, I'll tell you after. I don't think I can say it publicly yet, but I am working on some stuff that I'm really excited about. It's not a book. I've been thinking about editing an anthology. If I were to do a book, it would be an anthology of people writing about their experiences with mental health. I'm particularly focused on Black women globally. Writing about their experiences with mental health. That's something that I really want to do. Wow. I'm more keen to edit that than I am to write a whole separate book. I just don't want to. It's too much aggravation. I don't want it. But I am working on a couple of things. You follow me on Twitter.
Yeah, of course. I've already been saying. So that's so exciting. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm finally.
Thank you.
Questions. Thank you so much for this. I really, really enjoyed it. I like the fact that you're also comfortable with no, not a book, because people sometimes feel the need to if somebody's like, oh, are you working on something? Oh, even if they're not, they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to come up with something. But I like how comfortable you are that, and I'm sure in the future, if it comes to you to do something, you would handle that when it comes. So I like the fact that
Yeah.
you're easily comfortable with that.
I'm all about not putting pressure on myself to do anything.
Which is,
I don't need that. The world is stressful. I don't need to add to it. But I just want to tell you, first of all, I don't even know how, did you tag me on your YouTube video? I don't even know how I found it.
Yeah, I think on Instagram story and on Twitter. Yes, I tagged you in it. Yes, so that was.
Yeah, first of all, it was the first. I might be lying, but I'm telling the truth because I don't remember. I think it was the first like YouTube review from Nigeria, and the book was really important to me because as much again as I am an American person,
Right.
I am a Nigerian. You know, I am a Nigerian in my soul. If I'm not, I mean, when I was in Nigeria, I was like, oh, I'm American, clearly, because I don't vibe.
Yeah.
But I really appreciated how kind you were about the book, but not because, you know, there was an unkindness that was possible, but you were so thoughtful about it, and you were so introspective, and you were so forthright about the things that you liked about it, but in a way that meant that you really studied it, as opposed to people kind of go on the surface and like, oh, I like, you know, and even with the questions you asked me today, they were in depth. Right. And I spent so much time worried that people wouldn't understand the book, especially because of the way it was written. Right. Like the first person, second person, third person, tenses going in and out, all these weird memories and going back and saying, well, that's not true. Like all that stuff. I didn't think people were going to understand it. So it means so much to me that you were able to do that. And I also love the fact that the way that you broke it down, it's just, I really love what you're doing. I love the whole booktube thing. I love that you're doing, you know, the best you can to do this in an environment that's probably not as supportive as it could be. So yeah, that's why I was like, okay, like I want to talk to you, like let's do this. So anything that I can do, that doesn't require too much work, so I'm very lazy. Anything that I can do to support or to help, just let me know. Like you got it. Yeah, honestly.
So much. Thank you so much for that. And I just wanted to say, like, when I actually posted the book review and maybe some excerpts of the book, like people were sending me private messages like, oh, where can they get this? Oh my goodness, this feels like, and these were like Nigerians and the average Nigerian. And I know that there's some people who connect with books and with words and stuff. And that's what I said. Just people, it wasn't even about the form it was the substance, the fact that like somebody could be so open. And then ever since then, some people did go and get the book, and some people have shared their thoughts with me and everything like that. And it's something that strikes so deep, because you know how in Nigeria everybody's thinking something but nobody wants to say it because of the backlash, and then you see someone who said it and then you hop on the person and you're like yeah, you know, yeah, she said it, but you want to say it so bad. And I feel like that's what your book did for at least, I promise you, at least 5 million people. I promise.
Wow.
It's just that, you know, Nigerians, a lot of people don't have access to books. A lot of people like literally are living below how much a day, you know, and my cousin and I were talking about it the other time, like it's just crazy. It's not everybody that can get, you know, books, that can actually buy books. But if anybody sees something that they can relate to, especially with mental health, like we're eager to jump on it. The part of the book that I put on my Instagram page, so I have like this sort of feed. I'm trying to be a graphic designer kind of thing, whatever. And failing terribly. I'm trying to be like a cool bookstagrammer. But then on one line of my Instagram, I put like pages, excerpts of books, and that was the page, the one of what it feels like. And when I said, imagine you don't fit, man, there were so many. So people weren't commenting on the page, they were sending me messages, and it still just shows like nobody's really going to be like, oh, I can relate to this, oh my goodness, this is so powerful. It was only like people that said, oh, what book is this, please, where can I get it from, you know? But then it was mostly in the DMs, you know. So it just shows that people are actually seeing these things and they appreciate it so much, and they're looking for a voice that, you know, until when they can find their voices, they're looking for a voice that they could just, you know, sort of clamor onto and just hold on to and say, oh, you know, yeah, she said it first. You know? So that's why I'll forever be thankful for, you don't know how much your honesty and just you being open. Like, that's why I wanted to find out what the cost was. But thankfully, it wasn't like a sieve, because I can just imagine like the average, you know, how Nigerian felt like, oh, I should not read it. I'll go and read it. And after all this, I should not, you know. So I wanted to know what the cost of that was, because it's literally giving people the opportunity to find their own voice. Like, what if this person can, this is exactly how I feel, like this is it. I didn't know what it was. And that's why I'll forever be grateful for it, because I mean, I try so hard to let people, you know, even on my end, I also try to what they call normalize. If I'm out of it, I don't even know. I'm also learning stuff about myself, you know, and my mental health and stuff. I don't know. I'm all over the place sometimes, and you know, I'm also learning so much. So this was also another opportunity for me to learn a lot from you and every other person as well. So thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Like, just know that even people that you don't even know, like, are so happy that it's out there. And, you know, it's something that would not be forgotten. Like, it's the go-to. It's not even funny enough. There was some booktubers who I connected with over the book who had read it. They're not in Nigeria. And they were like, yeah, that it's so that, in fact, because I was coming from the Nigerian perspective, and I was like this, they're like, look, I think the person was either in the UK or in America. She's like, look, I'm in the UK, I'm in America, like I'm here, like I'm about to paint over this book. Like, you, like, honestly, stigma is everywhere. So some of us, like 3 of us, were in the comments, you know, talking about it and just sharing personal stories, and how, you know, we love the fact that you were so open and we could relate. So that was it's really, really something. So you know how it's your work, so you may put it out there and forget, but I want you to know that it's like in people's hearts forever. So
I appreciate that.
If there's one thing that you're like, oh, okay, at least I did something, this can be it. You can just
good. See, I don't need another book. Thank you. You're giving permission. More books. I've done it. You actually don't. Like, I'm just letting you know, like, if there's one thing you should be happy, this is it. So it's, and I'm sure I appreciate that. Thank you.
Lives, you know, and generations. So it's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm like mad excited about this thing. I really do appreciate it a whole lot. So thank you so much for this.
Of course.
Alrighty.
Of course.
So,
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.